Alright, response video to the Modern Mystic. Actually did a video I didn't hate. It doesn't happen too often. So anyway, he's been sort of talking a little, Marxism a little. We won't say the word too much anyway. He says it now and then, just sneaks it in there, and then he'll talk about an idea they had 100 years ago, implying, that it was sort of, analyzed and figured out that capitalism is always going to fall into some traps. And unless it has something like innovations to pop up now and then, like the internet or some other thing to distract everybody and rebalance the system or re-energize it, that it'll die of its own competitive nature, because the competition is always downward. It's not good for the nature of the human animal. And I guess it sort of happens with empires too. I mean, that's why they degrade. And in the old days, the kings, they would be strong and then they'd get weak, and they get strong again and they get weak, and they'd feed on each other's as they strengthened and weakened. But anyway, alright, so this video, he started off talking about barter, and how somehow, like the old days, it was some sort of fair system, because you used to barter up with real things and stuff and whatever, and trade eggs and whatnot. And that's all good and well, but we already know too that, going back thousands of years, kings did the owning. And so to me, it's better not to talk about money as money tokens. I don't think that means much. Money isn't what drives the system. What drives the system is deeds. And money basically is a deed. So deeds works better, because stocks are deeds and bonds are deeds and all these other things, houses are deeds and property is deeds, and all that crap is deeds. It's ownership, a claim of ownership. So I think deed works much better, and that's what we're all paid in, is a piece of a deed. We own something. The dollar bill is, here's a big 20 of them, 50 of them. This basically just says I own, like, I don't know, a tenth of an acre of America or something. I own whatever $50 will buy me from the federal government if I ask them to give me something. And what they'll give me is an IOU that has your name on it, and they'll say, go get the money from that guy because he owes us $200,000 in debt. But that's where it'll end up going. He said, we're just taking each other. It's just a claim on stuff. That's what it is. It's a claim on somebody's stuff. Okay, there's stuff out there that people, they have, but I have the deed. This is the deed to their stuff. They don't really have the stuff, because I have the real deed to it. And that's when all this debt finally gets back to where it's supposed to be, when you clean it all out of the system. Because the debt is what confuses everything. Because now the owners aren't really the owners. They sort of lent their surplus, and it's theirs. They still own the deed, and the other guy's just using it. And so that's where it gets kind of, once you start that game, it gets kind of messy. And so, the federal government has basically loaned out $13 trillion or more of stuff. Well, it's the other way around, really. It's that they've taken $13 trillion worth of stuff, possessing it and using it, but they have to give it back, plus this interest stuff. And that's the game here, is the interest thing. So basically, we got the same system we had with the empires. I mean, there's these rich people that own most of the stuff. They have the deeds to most of the businesses. They own, like say the Mississippi River is a good example. I always love using it. But let's say you just happen to fall into a deed that said you owned a piece of the Mississippi River. Well, now you own a piece of stuff that's going to make you more stuff, because there's going to be lots of people that want to use your river, and you can they can't do it any other way. There's no other way to get from one side of the river to the other, through it, without going through your piece. So you got a lock on it, and so you can just name your price almost, within reason, because you obviously make your price too high, then people will take mules and go around your section of the river, but they don't really want to do that because it'd be really expensive. So they're going to try to negotiate with you, but the bottom line is you're just going to keep making money. It's a money maker. It's not a business. It's not anything, but it's a money maker. And people will give you stuff, and so you'll acquire more and more surplus, and so you'll have more stuff to lend out. You'll have more stuff to give to somebody else and say, give me more stuff back when you give it back to me. Give me extra. And so you have a stuff engine. You're just going to keep collecting stuff. That's what the rich people do, and that's what they've been doing. That's what they've been doing for thousands of years. That's the advantage of ownership. And that's why capitalism is corrupt, because it never balances that ownership. It never forces these people who own to actually earn their ownership. So this legacy thing is a real damn big, fat, huge problem, and no one's dealing with that argument. But you got to fix that part of it, because if you don't, until you fix that part of it, you got no real game here. Capitalism is a big fat lie, at least in any kind of earn sense, because earn has nothing to do with it. Like in the movie, deserve has nothing to fucking do with it. And we're civilized, so we really should make deserve should have something to do with it. Deserve should have a big part of it, big giant part of it. So there's lots of examples of how this works in our real economy. Look at Microsoft. Made a ton of money. Didn't really produce a huge amount of value, but it made a ton of money because it could just extort everybody. I mean, once it had that first operating system on that IBM computer, and once other software programmers started programming on top of that Windows platform, they had us. Microsoft had us at Windows. I mean, it had us at DOS, really. is there was a ton of software that was designed to run on that operating system. So if you didn't have that operating system, you couldn't use the software. So it was just basically extortion. We were extorted to accept a preposterously overpriced piece of crap software at the base, just a piece of absolute crap, so we could run really great software that ran on top of it. And it was an obscenity, plain and simple. And that we were stuck with that as our option, as our only real viable choice. But that's what extortion can do, and that's the extortion of capitalism. If you got enough capital and you're in the right position, the right place at the right time, you're going to own something. And this copyright, we see the same thing happening. I mean, now they keep extending it and extending it and extending it, and it's just such bullshit. It's such a huge tax on our economy. You keep giving people stuff. You keep giving them deeds that they don't earn. They don't have to do any damn work, and you're giving them the damn deeds. You're giving them deeds to your life. It's like Google now. Everybody thinks it's this wonderful thing. It's taxing the internet. More than $10 billion in taxes a year. Well, it's more than that. I mean, that's what they're probably gleaning. Well, let's just say it's 15, 20. This advertising revenue is not free. I mean, all these companies have to pay Google to get into this stupid index to get their damn stuff seen, and to get an eyeball somewhere. And every click is now the average price. It's $1. It's over $1 for a click. So just think about what that's costing the internet, what inefficiency. When every business has to take out of its budget a huge wad of money, it's got to go float off to Google to pay to get you to their damn website. So every product you're going to pay 10% more for, or maybe 20%. And so then all the efficiencies you gain from having this wonderful e-commerce thing is destroyed. And then when you add in what happens because you don't regulate enough to keep the crooks from owning the damn place and running rampant on the damn thing, yeah, you add another 10% in liability to it because of all the malicious crap that goes on that we don't fucking criminalize. It's just such a huge, gigantic waste. But that's capitalism. That's where the money goes. The money goes to where it's going to generate money. I've made this argument before. Capitalists do not invest in productivity. They do not invest in, Nick sometimes describes it like, oh, they put their money in here to make, whatever, cowbells or something so everybody's happy so their cow has a bell and blah, blah, blah. But that's not what they do. They invest their money in a racket that will return them money, the highest profit possible. And so it doesn't have to be just an efficient business, one that pays its employees and creates a nice life and creates the bells and does it nicely and makes enough money to keep itself in business. No, they got to glean that profit out of it. They got to extract a profit out of it. It has to come out of somebody's ass. Either the bell's got to be made cheaper, or it's got to be more destructive to the cow, or they got to fuck the workers. Like somebody's got to get fucked because their goal isn't some optimum efficiency. Their goal is some sort of inefficiency where they can parasitically feed off of it. And that often means that you rip it to pieces. And so he talks about Milken and these other guys like they were doing something good, making businesses more efficient. No, what they were doing is extracting the short-term profit. They were destroying all the long-term research and development type investment, anything that had any sort of long-term value, and basically breaking it into its parts. And it's like a car. I have a car sitting in my driveway. Now, if I go to sell the whole car, let's say I'll get $1,000. If I just take it apart, if I spend one day ripping it to pieces, I can probably get $3,000 for it. I mean, that's how silly the world, but that's how the real world works. And that's all they did, is they destroyed cars. They didn't build cars. They didn't make cars better. They just leached off them. They found a way to extract more blood out of this dying business. And some of them aren't dying businesses. That's what's even more disgusting, is they'll take very viable businesses and just kill them because their stock price falls low enough by some arbitrary reasoning, because somebody's not popular enough, or somebody, the CEO had got into a divorce problem with his wife, or some other kind of bullshit that gets in the newspaper. All of a sudden the stock price drops low enough, they buy the company and rip it to pieces. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So anyway, I guess what I want to focus on is that I think it's much smarter to just think about all commerce as being run by this idea of ownership. It's deeds. It's a claim of ownership. Money is a claim of ownership. Stuff is a claim of ownership in the sense that you can trade it for somebody else's ownership of something else. And it's the ownership of the stuff that is the game. And what's happened is there's been people who've collected huge amounts of surplus stuff, and now they lend it. And then you add this ingredient of interest, which is the most malicious. So here you can have a productive business that's creating productive things that people can use, but this interest engine, it doesn't do anything productive. It just feeds rich people. It just feeds leeches. It doesn't do anything else whatsoever. And it's a real frickin' evil. People have a right to have security. They right have savings. Have some sort of security for their future. But this idea that you make money off of money is caustic. It's fucking acid. It's drain cleaner right down the human race's throat. And we gotta get out of that fucking psychology. So anyway, longer than I thought it would be. But anyway, thanks, Nick. Good video. A little long, but it was good. All right, just a little part I wanted to add. The deeds too. We got to remember too that what's really changed is that people are now, because of the secure economies we live in, and the fact that we have these governments instead of just empires and all that kind of crap, people are basically have sold their future. And so what makes it more complicated is that the stuff in the economy now, the claims on ownership, also include claims on future stuff, on future ownership, on future industry, future work. That's why, like I said, we're basically all carrying any adult person in the economy, not the kids or the old people or the rest of them, the people who have a realistic prospect of actually paying the bills, the debt back, they're all in debt, a couple $100,000. Okay, so you're walking around with that on top of your back. You don't see it, but it's there. And that's what these rich people are also using as part of their economy. And that's why the value of what your deed gets less and less valuable the more stuff they create. And when the stuff they're creating is a deed, when the deed they're creating is a deed on future ownership, that's when this thing really gets a little bit insidious. Especially when it's going 30 years into the future, preposterous, lengths into the future. So anyway, enough of the video.